Maybe a good time to transition to our guest speaker. We're really pleased and privileged to have Shivek here today, who has a special interest and I think a very strong background in neuroscience, as well as having his own perspective as a peer of those of you who were here in the workshop today. So let's see, if it's okay, Shivek, let me find if I can bring up the slides that you shared. I think I should be able to. Here we go. And if you are willing to come on mic and camera, then you can take it away.
Hi everyone, I'm Shivek. I'm a junior here at Online High School, and I'm also the founder of a nonprofit organization called Our Teen Brain. So as a junior, I'm really passionate about neuroscience. I've been really interested in the field of neuroscience for 3 years, and I want to share my interest and passion in this field with all of you guys here. So, a bit about me. I'm a rising junior. I live in Fremont, California. In my free time, I love basketball. And since I'm in high school, I'm a teenager. I'm a 16-year-old. And as I get started my presentation, just let me know if you guys have heard some of these common stereotypes about teenagers. So have you heard people say that teenagers are reckless, that we engage in risky behavior, we have a lot of mood swings, we're easily influenced, and we have poor decision making? Have you heard your parents say that sometimes, or other people say that? Because I've heard it a lot. So maybe in text chat, comment if you've heard that a lot. Oh yeah, so a lot of us teenagers have definitely heard that. And it all comes down to something about our brains. It all comes down to our brains. So if I said our brain is plastic, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? So if I said our brain is plastic, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Flimsy, bendable. That's great. When I went to give this presentation somewhere else, a lot of people were telling me they thought of like our brain was like a water bottle or something, which is definitely not what I was going for. But when our brains are plastic, exactly, ability to be molded and bendable. So while it's not made of plastic, because that would be really troublesome, it is really flexible and easy to bend. So like you've seen a material made out of plastic, right? Like for example, a plastic water bottle, and you can see how easy it is to bend those materials, change them around, make a completely different shape. Well, the brain is kind of like that. It's always changing with neurons constantly rearranging themselves. But think about it, it makes sense, right? Because if we go on in life, we always learn a lot more, we gain new experiences, and they all have to be stored in our brain, right? So if our brain didn't reorganize, it didn't change, how would we be able to learn and how would we be able to store our memories? And this again relates to the growth mindset, right? Because we can grow, we can change. And our plastic brains give us the ability to keep growing and changing. Now, if you've also noticed that children and teenagers like us, we're able to learn things much more quickly than adults are. For example, memorization, learning new concepts, they tend to come to teenagers and children much better, which is why also it's easier to learn an alphabet or a language at a younger age, which is why we take like such classes in school. But they can pick up on languages quicker and consume knowledge more easily because we and other younger children have more flexible brains. Our brains are more plastic. Right now we're in a critical period where our brains can be easily influenced and molded by any external influence, especially in the teenage years and during adolescence. Now, there's this one specific region of the brain called the prefrontal cortex. So, if I have my brain up here in my head, at the very front of my head is the prefrontal cortex. And so this region of the brain is responsible for thinking, planning, behavior, making good decisions, controlling emotions, inhibiting reckless actions. And this part of the brain, especially during our teenagers, is growing. It's changing, it's evolving, it's being modified. So while it's always growing and changing, you can think about it that it's kind of unstable in a way, right? Because it's not constant, it's just changing. And for teenagers, during our adolescence. And this leads to a lot of the, what we call symptoms in a way that we talked about in the beginning, right? Like how recklessness, bad decision making, and it's because the region of our brain that's really responsible for controlling all of that is constantly changing and molding during our teenage years. So this can leave people more susceptible during their teenage years, right? So for example, peer pressure is something that occurs a lot in high school and towards children. The peer pressure. Now, understanding that your brain is always changing in these years. Or exactly, yeah. If all your friends jumped off a cliff, would you? That's a really infamous one. But like more practical examples as well, right? But as the brain's always changing, in my opinion, and a lot of people also feel this way, is that if us as teenagers understand the way our brain works, how our brain changes, and how it's evolving throughout these years, understanding that will help us be more resistant and strong against peer pressure, and it will help let us stick to our moral values, right? Because when many times people are encouraging us to go down a wrong path, we've seen many cases of people following that wrong path, and it leads to something that will harm them eventually in the long run. And sometimes it is their fault, but sometimes it's just the fact that their brain's growing. They want to fit in with everyone. And it's kind of hard to blame people that way. But understanding that your brain is trying to convince you do this when you really shouldn't be doing it, and understanding it will keep people more resistant and strong against that peer pressure. In another case, an individual may be a victim to bullying, harassment, and harm. Eventually, all the bullying coinciding with the development of the emotional control center of the brain and recklessness might lead to people performing drastic actions. We've heard about teenage depression rates and suicide rates also going up a lot, especially in the Bay Area where I live. There's been a lot of cases of that. And so again, understanding that changes that are going on in the brain, they're no one's fault, because some people tend to feel embarrassed sometimes when there's change, when their brain's changing like this, and it leads to changes in behavior. Some people tend to feel embarrassed, but there's really nothing to feel embarrassed about, because it's a phase of life everyone's going through. As our brain evolves, as our prefrontal cortex changes, everyone's going to tend to go through some mood swings. They're going to have some emotional trouble, and it's nothing to be afraid about or something anyone should be embarrassed about. If anyone's ever feeling like that, you should always be open to talking to someone, a friend, a counselor, as they can always help you and they'll always guide you in the right direction. And so these are the two case studies that I mentioned. And then always remember to talk to others, because everyone's always interested in helping one another out. People care. So I also want to talk a little bit of my organization as well. Is that it is very important that teenagers should know about the changes the brain is going through, since being conscious about these changes will help them be prepared for all the adverse side effects that development leads to. So this is the goal of the Teen Brains Initiative. We want to spread knowledge and awareness of the brain to high schoolers throughout the nation. So I currently go and give talks to a lot of high schools in the Bay Area. I've also given a presentation at Reno and at some local libraries. And my goal is to target not only teenage audiences, but parents and counselors as well, so they can understand how their teenagers are working, and they can also help and understand and sympathize with them better. In addition, I've also created a website and social media outlets. So if anyone's interested in joining my initiative, that would be great. You guys feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to reach out to my website or message on Facebook or Twitter. And I just want to remember that all the symptoms that we mentioned in the beginning, that us teenagers have to keep hearing, that, oh, you guys are reckless, you guys aren't making right decisions. And I just want to remember that all the symptoms that we mentioned in the beginning, that us teenagers have to keep hearing, that, oh, you guys are reckless, you guys aren't making right decisions. It's not in any way fair to blame teenagers for that, because it's a natural part of life. When we're growing and changing, our brain is changing as well, and this will lead to us making our reckless decisions at times. So I just want, if there's anything I want everyone to take away from this presentation, is that whatever changes that you're going through, as an adolescent, whatever you're feeling, you might be feeling sometimes some days unhappier, some days stranger. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's a natural part of life. Our brains are growing and changing, and just constantly remembering about your teenage brain, about how it's constantly evolving and changing, it's going to keep you much better off in your entire adolescent years. So remember to always keep that in mind. It'll help you stay strong against peer pressures. Will help you sort out a lot of your emotions, and always remember that people do care. There's always anyone you can talk to. So on that note, that's all I have to really say, and thank you guys for listening to me.
Initiative that you are you were doing. That's really great. Thank you so much, Shivek. That was a great presentation. It's really exciting to hear about the initiative that you were doing. That's really great. I didn't really run this by Shivek